Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Shohei Ohtani. That's it. That's the tease. Also, some are asking, how many interceptions is too many after Trey Lance threw 5 in a preseason game? Just normal stuff for the Cowboys right now. And could the Commanders swoop in to get Brandon Aiyuk? Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks of a free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Shohei Ohtani has a 40-40 season while recovering from Tommy John's, because he's also, by the way, a pitcher. If you didn't, in 1986, this would be the biggest story in sports, and it wouldn't be close. Jeff Snyder from Locked On Dodgers joins me now. And Jeff, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you, because baseball, they do conference MVPs. If they didn't, who would be the MVP of the 2024 Major League Baseball season?
You know, it's kind of funny, because the thing that I'm most relieved about is the fact that Ohtani and Aaron Judge are finally in different leagues. So when Aaron Judge is having a season like he's having, because the fact is, when Aaron Judge beat out Ohtani for the MVP the other year, Ohtani had a pretty good case, but there's no way that a guy who hits 62 home runs isn't going to win the MVP. Judge is on pace for 62 homers again this year. So a lot of it depends on what Judge's number ends up at. Like if Judge ends up with 58 home runs, hits a slow stretch, I think probably Ohtani would be the MVP of the major leagues. But if Judge matches or passes his mark of 62, he's going to be a unanimous MVP in the American League. And I don't think Shohei Ohtani or anybody else would do anything about that. Yeah.
Have you understanding that if Shohei, by the way, were pitching, we probably, that would not be a conversation. Like if he's pitching the way that we know he can pitch, it would probably be Ohtani, right? But he's not, because he's pitching hurt, not hitting hurt, which is remarkable that he's in this position now. You know, he could hit 50 home runs and it wouldn't be totally crazy. From where we started, when we found out this was like he was going to have this issue and the surgery and be recovering for it, but was going to play, to now, could you have predicted this would be where we'd be? Like this seems totally implausible to me that they would have allowed him to play enough to have a 40-40 season.
You know, the playing time doesn't surprise me, really. I think we expected Ohtani to be great. He is legitimately one of the top 2 or 3 best hitters in baseball right now. And that's why, like you said, it's remarkable that he's doing all this without pitching. No DH has ever won the MVP award. Shohei Ohtani is almost a shoo-in to win the National League MVP award this year. And no DH has ever done that before. But yeah, I mean, I think it would have been hard to predict. I expected a very good season for Ohtani, but I think if I had to put numbers, I would have said, 38 home runs and probably get you 15 to 20 stolen bases and bat about 280, and just have a really good season. Everything I just said is a really, probably driving 100, 110 runs. All those are really good numbers. He's going to pass all of those. Yeah. And he's already passed. Flown past the stolen base number. That might be the most surprising part. Just he decided, hey, I'm fast. I might as well steal a bunch of bases. and that's not a decision I've ever had to make in my personal life. I didn't have the first part of the sentence to qualify me, but yeah, it's pretty remarkable what he's doing. And we knew he was going to be healthy enough to hit, but there's always that question. I mean, Bryce Harper had a similar surgery, and he's had his bumps and bruises, ups and downs. And for Shohei Ohtani, I can't think of a single time this season when I've thought, oh yeah, the elbow's affecting him.
Yeah, and that part is remarkable. And also, and I think the reason why the question that we opened with is particularly salient is you look at the American League, the Yankees are leading the American League. They have the best run differential in baseball. And the Dodgers, despite sort of wandering in the wilderness for parts of this summer, now have the best point differential in the National League as well. They look like the favorites in the National League. And where we started, it's rare that in baseball, the best player has this sort of impact. Angels fans will tell you that. Mike Trout for years did not seem to. Yeah, well, true, of course, to have both of those guys on their team. And yet we're here looking at what could be a World Series matchup with clearly the two best players in baseball.
Although, to be fair, Juan Soto is no slouch and Mookie Betts is no slouch.
True.
You know, both guys have pretty darn good supporting casts. And
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah. You know, but, you know, Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani were teammates for a long time. I think a lot of it is that both teams are built to be good up and down the lineup. And so, you know, you've got to have your Alex Verdugos and your Gleyber Torreses and, you know, those guys that the Yankees have. You got to have Mookie and Freddie and Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez having a great season. Gavin Lux has turned into one of the best hitters in baseball the second half. Like, you got to have those guys because one or two guys can't carry you to a championship. But when you're starting from, okay, this guy's one of the top two players in baseball, and then you add that supporting cast, it's a really good place to start from.
Stay up to date on the Los Angeles Dodgers all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Dodgers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You can also check out our Spanish and Japanese language versions of the Locked On Dodgers podcast on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, just how big a deal is 5 interceptions in a preseason game when you don't have your franchise quarterback under contract? Before we get to that, Aaron Judge is really good at hitting home runs. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you could look at an NFL future. Everyone wants to be a #1 receiver who will lead all wide receivers in yards. FanDuel has 3 players with odds 9-1 or shorter. FanDuel has Tyreek Hill, the favorite to lead the league in receiving at +650. CeeDee Lamb right behind him, doesn't have a contract, +750. And then Justin Jefferson checks in at 9-1. Interestingly enough, both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamar Chase have 11-1 odds. And I like both of those a lot. So I'm on St. Brown in particular on that one. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Aaron Judge did it again. The man hit his 50th dinger, and later in the same game, his 51st on the season. He is on pace for a remarkable number yet again. Be ready for the college football cut-ins, folks.
So here are some numbers. He hit his 50th home run in game 156 in 2017. That was September 25th. In 2022, he hit his 50th home run in game 129 on August 29th. And this year, game 131 on August 25th. So he is at a 63 home run pace at the moment.
Ridiculous.
Which is insane. And like I keep saying, he's beating himself. There's no pressure this time. It's not the whole, he's going to beat Roger Maris and the whole 61 and it's been 61 years and this and that. This is just him against himself. There's no pressure on him. And even if he slows down a little bit, but then goes on another tear toward the end of the season, because he's known to do that, you could see 63, 64, maybe even 65 if he keeps doing this double this 2 home run thing.
In NFL news, the Los Angeles Rams have granted linebacker Ernest Jones IV and his agents permission to seek a trade, according to reports. Jones and the Rams tried unsuccessfully to extend his contract that ends after this season. Jones is resolute. He says, I know the work that I've put in the past 3 years. I know I'm worthy of something, regardless what the worth may be. The Steelers still have not named a starting quarterback. Clock is ticking on that one. Coach Mike Tomlin not in a hurry.
We'll make a decision at the end of our work week this upcoming week. We got 3 days of Steelers versus Steelers work, and why not do it then? It kind of, minimizes the Steelers versus Steelers work when we start making decisions prior to the completion of that. We've got ample time to prepare for Atlanta and make whatever decisions or announcements regarding divisional labor or pecking orders and so forth. And so we'll do it at the end of the work week.
And on the diamond, the Houston Astros cruised to an important win over the Baltimore Orioles.
So, Brett, the 2 games in the middle were kind of disappointing. You had the lead, I think definitely in Saturday's game, you had the lead and it felt like everything was in your control. Then one play at first base just kind of derailed the whole Astros plans.
Yeah, that was tough. I saw someone make a pretty ridiculous excuse for Fromber. They were blaming the heat. They said, well, because it was hot. And I'm not even lying. It's an actual journalist. He was trying to defend Fromber, basically saying it wasn't his fault at all. Basically, both him and Singleton, neither one of them aggressively approach that play. Whether you're tired or not and there's heat, you've got to do your job. And it's not about, oh, well, they're paid millions. It's about you have a job to do.
Well, it was a great fantasy football final preseason game for Trey Lance, 323 yards plus 90 yards and a touchdown on the ground, but 5 interceptions, and the Dallas Cowboys probably leave with more questions than answers, which may be the theme of the preseason for players who are actually going to be on the field for Dallas this year in 2024. Marcus Mosher from Locked On Cowboys joins me now. And Marcus, what a bizarre 6 weeks, 8 weeks here as we enter the regular season for the Dallas Cowboys. Where does the Trey Lance storyline rank for you on interesting things on this team headed into 2024?
At the very bottom. It's just not that big of a deal. I mean, he's the 3rd quarterback on this team, on a team that has several questions on both sides of the ball and with their head coach. So, no, I mean, the Trey Lance stuff was fun because he played a lot in the preseason. He had almost as many dropbacks in the preseason than he did in his entire college career at North Dakota State. So that part of it was crazy. No, I'm not making that up, by the way. Like that's,
I mean, no, but like you are, but then he played 1 game his final season in college because of COVID. Like he probably had more dropbacks over the weekend than he did in that. Like he did 49 dropbacks or 49 attempts. So
he just hasn't played a lot. So we should expect some rough outings. There was a lot of good in this game. The turnovers were obviously very bad, but once the season starts here in 2 weeks, Peter, none of this is going to matter.
Okay, so of the things that do matter, we have to figure out what's going on with Dak Prescott. There are some other guys that you may have heard of, superstar players that need some contracts. Where do we stand with all of this stuff as we head into the regular season where you have some star players going, what about me?
So let's start with Dak. I'm of the belief that when the Cowboys took part of their first practice and Dak didn't have a new deal, that was kind of the beginning of the end. Now, maybe he gets a deal done here over the next couple of weeks before the week 1 starts, but I don't anticipate that happening. I think Dak is perfectly fine playing out this year and then reevaluating all of his options in 2025. I do think CeeDee Lamb, I think a deal gets done this week. I think it makes too much sense for it not to get done. He wants to be here. The Cowboys want to be here. It's just finding the right number, and I think they'll get there, Peter.
Okay, so then how much do you think all of this affects look, Jerry Jones says they're all in every year. I don't know that the moves in the offseason signal that same thing headed into this year. You and I have had those conversations here, but how do you think this uncertainty affects the 2024 actual on-season play? Because it seems like there's a lot of pressure on Mike McCarthy. If they're going to go into this season without a deal for Dak Prescott, that puts an immense amount of pressure on not only Dak Prescott, but Mike McCarthy to maximize this season. Like this is a lot, it seems like.
What's really weird is how do they evaluate decisions long-term and short-term? Like, for example, they're going to be likely going to be starting 2 rookies on the offensive line. And that's going to be, I think it's good in the long term, but I think we could see some really rough patches early on in the season on the offensive line. Could they theoretically start veterans at those spots instead to give them a better chance in 2024? Probably, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. On defense, are they going to go with older players like Eric Kendricks, Linval Joseph, Jordan Phillips, Or are those guys going to be backups to younger players like DeMarvion Overshown, Mozzie Smith, whoever you want to pick? It's just it's very fascinating to see what roster decisions they make over the next couple of days, who's starting, who's playing, because it very much feels like they have mixed timelines here.
I just checked, by the way, Trey Lance in his one lone year as the starter at North Dakota State, he had 287 attempts in the preseason, 113 attempts in 129 dropbacks. So that's half a season of college football that he packed into 3 games in the preseason here. I know that you said it doesn't matter, but I was curious. So I had to look all of that up. You and I in 6 months are talking about what with the Dallas Cowboys?
What does this franchise look like? Who's the head coach in 2025? Does Dak want to be back? Does Dak get a say as to who's the next head coach? Like, I think the Cowboys, they are in recruiting.
He holds all the cards, right?
Right. So it's going to be, what can we do to present the best package to Dak to stay? Or do things go so poorly this year where the Cowboys just feel like we need a total reset? Yes, it's going to suck to lose a franchise quarterback in free agency, but do we need to start completely from ground zero here? I think everything is on the table. I also wouldn't be surprised if this is a year of all years where the Cowboys get some luck in the playoffs and maybe the ball bounces their way and suddenly the worst version of this team they've had in the last 4 years is suddenly going into round 2 or round 3 of the playoffs. The NFL is weird. That ball bounces funny ways. I'm excited to see what happens.
Stay up to date on the Dallas Cowboys by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cowboys on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, could the Commanders be a surprise entrant into the Brandon Aiyuk saga? The Washington Commanders made a weird in-division trade last week. As Locked On NFL hosts David Harrison and Lauren Cox discuss, it could pave the way to a surprise ending in the Brandon Aiyuk saga.
Commanders actually won this trade, which for the record, I actually agree with you as well already. But Commanders fans could get on board with both of us if the Washington Commanders turn that Philadelphia Eagles 3rd round pick into Brandon Aiyuk. And the way they could do this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, the reports were they were willing to give the 49ers a 2nd round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. If that price is now lowering because of the circumstances, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not in as much of a rebuild project. They're still trying to win now. They're trying to win the AFC North right now. So that's their concern. The Washington Commanders are very much a project, right? So if you're Adam Peters, if that price goes down to a 3rd round pick, what you might be able to do is combine your 3rd round pick with the 3rd round pick you just got for Jahan Dotson. Essentially, you trade Jahan Dotson and a 5th round pick and a 3rd round pick. So Jahan Dotson, 3rd round pick, 5th round pick for Brandon Aiyuk and 2 7th round picks. Lauren Cox, if I told you that's what the Washington Commanders spent to get Brandon Aiyuk, what would you grade that trade?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like great value. I mean, you have to obviously ensure that you're turning around and agreeing to a contract with Brandon Aiyuk and not getting into a Hassan Riddick situation. But like that would be immense value for a 1,000-yard receiver, a bona fide stud like Brandon Aiyuk.
I have to be honest, one of my first reactions when the Commanders traded Jahan Dotson, and I tweeted this out there as proof of this, I said they should use that draft pick to go trade for Brandon Aiyuk. Teammates at Arizona State, Jaden Daniels has been in some of the, shall we say, viral posts that Aiyuk has made sure have been very public as this negotiation has gone on. I don't think it's any secret Brandon Aiyuk would love to reunite with Jaden Daniels. The Commanders not on the same level as the Steelers in terms of what they can offer as a playoff team this year, certainly not on the level of the 49ers in terms of being a championship contender. But if the Commanders were willing to meet that number and you get to go play with your quarterback, would that be more appealing than, say, the Patriots, who are going to give them the 30 plus million and meet the 49ers trade demands? And Aiyuk said, I'm good. The one word of caution, though, just look not too far away from the Bay Area, far enough, be a long drive, to Las Vegas. Devontae Adams asked for a trade out of Green Bay, a terrific situation for him to play with his collegiate quarterback. And within a year, that guy was benched and out of town. And now Devontae Adams is looking around going, do I really have to catch passes from a guy with a handlebar mustache and jorts. Is that really what we're doing here? After getting killed by Jimmy Garoppolo last year. Be careful what you wish for. That's all I'm going to say. And finally, the Chicago White Sox are on a daunting pace. They became the second fastest team in Major League Baseball history to 100 losses on Sunday. In fact, they have to win 12 games the rest of the way to avoid breaking the 1962 Mets record of 120 losses. White Sox interim skipper Grady Sizemore lent some perspective. Unless you win the last game of the year, it doesn't matter. Of course, the White Sox are barely winning any other games this year, so sure, why not? If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today is the whole bargain bin quarterback thing going to work out for the Steelers. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.